Hi, I'm Phil from Prep RS. Great to see you again. Thanks for tuning in. Today I've got a fantastic guest, and this is Alex from the British Paranormal Society. So Alex, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Great to see you again.
And you, yeah.
And I believe you actually moved to near me.
I have.
In Lincolnshire,
Lincolnshire, yeah, just down the road. Actually, just on the cusp, Rutland, Stamford.
Yeah.
I'm quite loyal to Rutland. I don't know why.
Really?
Yeah.
Were you born in Rutland?
No.
Oh.
I've got no affiliation. I just like it.
You love
It's
Rutland?
very historic.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
So, yeah, it's a lovely place.
Great. So tell me about the society then, Alex. How long's it been going for?
I started this by chance about 12 years ago, 10,
Right,
12 years
yeah,
ago.
yeah.
It started in Scarborough, actually. In
Wow,
Wales.
Scarborough.
Yeah, we started
Love it,
there
yeah.
with me and a friend of mine, and it's just myself now who does it, and it just kind of took off from there. You know, I'd say 85% of it's organic, the growth on the
Really?
internet. Yeah,
Really?
and it just took off. It took off quite rapidly.
Because it's internet based.
Internet based, yeah. So it all started internet based, and we started doing a few investigations and cutting our teeth and learning how it works and things. And then once you do one,
Yeah,
it leads to another, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and that's kind of how it's grown. Yeah.
How many members have you got, Alex?
Members, followers on Facebook, I've got 57,000.
Wow,
So
that's amazing.
I wanna try and-
57,000.
I want to try and get to 100.
Jeez.
And it's not really a much thing, it's just nice to know. It's just nice that there are other people out there who are as interested, because I'm not making money out of these guys. These guys are genuinely interested.
But a lot of people are now, Alex.
That's right. And it's great for me because, you
Yeah.
know, when you're... This subject is such an unusual subject because everybody's skeptical or believer.
Yeah.
It always crosses divides and cultures and everything else.
Yes, yeah.
Because every culture in the world has got the similar stories.
Yeah,
so going
absolutely.
back thousands of years.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
always a conversation point, I think.
Absolutely it is. Yeah, I mean, I've got a friend that's a skeptic and you can't get anything past him. You
No.
say, but she told me that, and there were 3 other witnesses.
Yeah.
Oh, no, there'll be an explanation, he keeps saying. So it's a bit tiresome, really. with
It
the
can
skeptic.
be, yeah. But you do need skeptics as well. You
Yeah.
do need that level-headed person because
Yes.
sometimes if you've got a group of people and things do start being a bit more active, you kind of need someone just to rein things in a bit.
Because
So
we'll all
like-
go mad.
Yeah.
We'll all go mad together. won't
People
we?
just sort of, your adrenaline goes up, and
Yeah.
before you know it, so you do need that voice of reason. And what's really interesting, if you get a good skeptic with you, it's like a music skeptic or anything, they will tell you what they think.
From another point of view.
Yeah, but they will
Yeah.
also tell you as well, if there is things that have happened, and they
Yeah.
really can't debunk it, that to me is really interesting. Because if it's going to be debunked, they're going to be the ones. And I have had that. I've had people say, I really can't explain that.
Wow.
And that to me is good.
So you're looking for members, are you, Alex?
Yeah, so
how does that work?
So how it works is, over the Christmas period, I'll probably be looking at the new year now, because it's a busy time of year for everybody with Christmas and things. So in the new year, we're going to open it up to subscriptions.
Right.
Not a lot, a couple of quid a week, a month, sort of thing. But
£2 or £3 a month?
Yeah, about that.
Yeah.
And then that will give everyone, I'm going to do a magazine.
Really?
Yeah, which is going to be quarterly for now.
Yes.
It'll be an e-magazine, so that's all sorted, that's been in the pipeline, so that's ready to go.
And a physical magazine?
I'm
or
thinking,
not?
I'd like to do a physical magazine, but I'm going to do the e-one first, the
Right.
internet one, and then I'd like to do a physical magazine.
Yeah. Well, that's great. So, when you go out on a ghost hunt, is that the correct word?
Yeah, I suppose, hunt, investigation, either, yeah.
Are you not frightened, Alex?
Um,
I would be.
No, yes and no. I think the best way of looking at it, and I've mentioned this before, is, to me personally, it's a bit like a roller coaster when you're a child. You're watching all your friends get on it, and it's going round and round, and you've got those butterflies and adrenaline, and you're thinking, and eventually you get on it, and you hate every minute of it, but then you get off and you want to do it again. That's that kind of adrenaline thing. So, I think if I wasn't a little bit apprehensive or a little bit scared, I wouldn't do it. It's a bit like going on stage. Again, if you're a musician or an actor, if you haven't got that buzz, you're not going to do it.
And what sort of places do you visit?
I've done jails, lighthouses, windmills. I've done modern houses, new builds, which are fascinating. New builds, quite a few new builds. Cottages, old churches. The list goes on. And some of the, roads as well. I've done a few because I'm quite fascinated in road ghosts. Yeah, different areas. Yeah. So
is this from accidents?
From accidents, mainly from accidents. There's a famous one at Corby, which is the Monk, which is a Barford Bridge. That's a really good one. I've got some good footage of that actually, someone sent me. But that again, so what I do is I get the story, I'll talk to the people, I'm going to have a look at it myself, and then I do the research backwards to see if there's no smoke without fire, is there?
No, not at all. But you know, at some point you get permission to go into the church.
Yeah, that's the hard bit, I think.
Is it?
You're going through other people's belief systems. I've actually been shut down completely with quite a large historic house around here. I won't name it, but the staff and the members of who were employed were really, really keen because they said it's really, really active, blah, blah, blah. And they got back to me the next day and they said, I'm afraid that the family who live there don't want it. And I respect their wishes, you know.
I have to say, let me tell you about a country house near here called Stoke Rochford Hall.
Okay.
And a lady called Susie that I used to employ got a job as night, not porter, because she was in there, night auditor was her title. And it meant she had to sit there alone at night for some reason. She had to be there and she did a bit of paperwork or whatever. But she was so frightened of the lift coming down to her floor, the ground floor, and the doors opening to reveal no one there. And then it'd go off again, that she was petrified and she couldn't stand it. I think she lasted for 6 weeks. So who on earth was pressing the buttons on that in that lift, I wonder?
There's a very good story on the BBC Uncanny. I don't know if anyone's watched it, but it's worth watching. But there's a very similar story there with a lift in it as well. And that was really interesting. I had one in Whitby called the Old Ropery. Well, literally where the poor would make ropes.
Wow.
Poorhouse.
For little bits of money.
Yeah, well, they were put in there. It was really effectively a workhouse.
Yes,
And that's what they were doing. They were literally stay there all day. And it's now offices. So
right.
in these offices, a friend of mine, they'd installed all these cameras around everywhere, and she said it's absolutely really, really active. They had these cameras installed on the Friday, they locked on the Saturday and Sunday weekend. At the time, there was no one about. They went in on the Monday and they checked the monitors at the reception, and they were all black when they should have been monitoring the areas.
Turned off.
So they called the guy. And they're high up, it's a big, tall ceilings. You know, you need a ladder, to put it that way. And when he got there, every single camera had been turned physically to face the wall. Every one, not just one or two. There's about 12 he'd installed in hallways and different areas.
And they were higher than you could reach.
They're high, you need a step ladder. And he said they're not easy to turn. You have to kind of, when you put it in, you obviously tighten it up so it's going to stop. And it had all been turned to face the wall.
Wow, so something was being displeased.
Something was being displeased, yeah.
An amusing story I was told by Ralph Ticehurst, was he had some problems in a big country house, Yorkshire again, where there was a bit of poltergeist activity going on. But the amusing thing was, for me, I found it amusing, that every painting that they tried to hang that the ghost didn't like would be brought down and put on the floor. The ones it liked could remain. How about that?
And that's it. I know, and it's not till it happens to you.
I know,
that's the thing, you can tell, you hear stories, but that's the thing about the subject really, is that you hear all these stories from very sane, normal, quote-unquote people, and you're thinking again, why would they make that up?
That's right. So how many in number would normally go to a church or a pub overnight, Alex, and to try and detect for something?
I like small groups, so I've got a group at the minute I've just put together in Stamford, and there's 5 actually. One on the outside who does a bit of the research for me. But I like small groups, and if I did a group with the general public, if you like, again, I'd like to keep the numbers a bit lower, because when you get larger numbers, it's just harder to sort of police, if you like. And it's not quite as intimate. You've got a lot, unless you've got a big property, and you can split people up, and you can say 10 over here and 10 over there. But you get to the point where actually a lot of places will only take so many as a group.
Will they?
Well, health and safety and things.
Understand.
I always used to say as well that the number one rule to doing any investigation, the only thing you are not allowed to do is run. Because people panic and they run, and they're running in areas they don't know, and it's dark. And I've seen people fall down stairs because they're so scared.
And charged,
and then they run, they get out.
Do you find that you have to do it in the dark?
It's quite an interesting one, really. To me, when it happens in the daylight, it's much more interesting because I think the dark, I think it actually conjures up your imagination more.
Yes.
And I would say that majority of things, when it's quiet, you know, I think the reason why it's so important at night is everything is quiet.
Yeah.
In the day, you've got a lot more
Distraction.
Exactly. You've got
Yeah.
traffic, you've got this, you've got people.
Yeah.
You know, but at night, goes
Yeah.
quiet. So, and it's not only that; it does heighten things, and you can pick things up better because you're in a different light. You know. So
Yeah.
It does. Yeah. But it does seem to be more effective.
And it heightens the
I think that
concentration.
could
and
be the
everything.
answer.
Very
Is it us?
interesting.
Is it us heightening it? Is it our imagination? So then you've got to start asking those sort of questions.
Yeah. So you've got to tell me, have you actually seen a ghost at any of these places, Alex?
Unfortunately, I've only seen one thing, which I can safely say I cannot explain at all, and that was in Yorkshire, and it wasn't an investigation. It was myself in a car.
In a car?
In a car, driving a car with my partner at the time. The road had closed. I was going to her parents' house in the country, quite a way out of York, 20 miles out, and the road was diverted, and I knew where I was going. So I went round this little bridge, round the corner, really bad junction. The hill goes up to the left, so I'm cutting across. As I cut across this junction, there was a man, about 6 foot, stood, and I swerved him.
And you
because
swerved
I
away
him.
from him?
Yeah, because he was stood that close, and I was going to hit him.
Gosh.
So I swerved him,
Yeah.
and my partner at the time said, "What are you doing?" I said, "The bloke," and nearly just hit the guy back there, and she said, "I didn't see anyone." So I imagine now, I'm thinking, okay, so I turned round. It's pitch black, you know. So I turned around and I went back and I thought, well, if there is anybody there, they haven't got far because there isn't far to go.
Yeah.
So I go back to the junction where it was, nothing. Interestingly, when I
Wow.
looked at the verge was at kind of this angle. So the road and then the verge. So I worked out quite quickly, you couldn't stand on that verge if you wanted to.
Really?
So I started thinking again, but I could see this guy.
Yeah.
It wasn't a ghostly figure. It was a man in blue jeans, a white t-shirt, and a black leather jacket, and he was looking that way. This is the other thing that's
He wasn't looking at you?
No, and as I pulled round,
Yeah.
if I was a pedestrian, I would step back.
Yes,
I would
yeah.
move. Didn't move.
No, nothing.
About 2 weeks later, I was helping a friend of mine with some work, and I told my other friend about this story. I just said about it. I get into this place, and this old fella comes over, and he said, "Oh, Rob was telling me about." I thought, "Oh, he's told, you know, here we go." I said, "Yeah," and before he said, "Don't tell me," and Rob hasn't told me, he said, "But was he wearing blue jeans, white t-shirt, and black leather jacket?" And I kind of went cold, and I went, "Yeah."
Gosh.
And then interestingly, because I hadn't told Rob this,
Yes.
he said, "Was he just staring up the road?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah." And
Wow.
he said, "Oh, he gets seen quite regularly." Apparently what it was, he was from Malton, which is near York, and York is the back road,
Yeah.
and in the Rockers, Mods and the Rockers, 67, 60.
Oh, yes.
He was a rocker,
Oh, right.
and he was coming down there, and I actually looked it up.
On his scooter?
Oh no, on his motorbike.
On his
He was a
motorbike,
rocker.
yeah,
So
yeah.
he comes down there, and because it's a really bad
Oh,
junction,
yes, yeah.
a car pulled across, he hit the car, and it went over, and he killed him. But he's been seen really
Again
regularly.
and again.
So I don't know what, I know what
You
I
saw him, didn't you?
Yeah, I know what I saw.
Let me tell you a story that was told to me by a lady called Pauline,
Yeah,
and it was about her brother, Sean.
yeah.
We're talking about ghosts at the side of a road or at junctions that have been in some form of accident. Now, this was in a town called Ely in Cambridgeshire. Sean was driving his work van. He was a self-employed gentleman, and he saw a girl at the side of the road at a junction crying.
Yeah.
And he thought, I don't like the look of that. She doesn't look right. I'll pull over and see if I can offer any assistance. So he pulled his van over and he walked over to this girl. He said, "My love, are you all right? Do you want to lift home? Do you live near here?" And she nodded. "Come on, I'm going to take you straight home."
Yeah.
"Where's your mum?" "She's not here." Nobody was there. He waited a minute or two to see if mum came.
Yeah.
She didn't. "Let me take you home, my love." She got in the van and he drove back to a property, again in Ely. And then the girl got out and walked quite somberly down the side of an entry, like a brick entry at the side of a terrace-type house. And he thought, well, I hope she's all right. What can have happened? Anyway, a day or two later, Sean was back in the area doing a job. He thought, I'm going to knock on the door and just see what happened. I mean, they might not tell me, but, you know, I mean, I'm involved now.
Yeah.
So he knocked on the door, and a middle-aged lady answered and said, "Hello, can I help you?" He said, "Yes, I brought a young girl back 2 days ago, actually. I'm just wondering whether she's all right. She seemed a bit disturbed." "Oh, not another one," she said. come on in, I'll make you a cup of tea. So he went up 2 or 3 steps into this lobby, into this lounge or whatever it was, and she made him a strong cup of tea, sat him down and said, look, ever since my daughter was knocked over and killed at that junction, motorists keep bringing her home and it gets a bit tiresome sometimes. I hope you'll forgive me for this. But thanks so much for what you think you've done, but she's passed away. Now the interesting thing, and the worst thing for me, is that Sean died 2 days later. The coroner said there is no explanation for this death.
No.
I've checked everything. He didn't die of anything.
No.
He was in his 40s, Alex.
It's fascinating. I love any stories like that.
Yeah.
You know, where, you know, people have gone, but there's a similar one, which is down in the Cotswolds, very similar, where a man was driving along on a summer's day, and the road's closed. Very similar to my story. The road's closed and it's diverted. So it's diverted the traffic's diverted, and then he gets along this country and it starts raining, and it really like stair rods, proper raining. And as he's driving along, he's coming through these wooded areas, and there's a girl stood, wet through. She pulls over, she gets in the back, and she just says, the next village. So he drives, and he's concentrating that hard on the weather. He's thinking, what? He gets out of this wooded area and back onto the road, and the sun comes out, as if he'd just blown over this track. Gets to the village. As he's pulling into the village, he looks over his shoulder, and she's gone.
Wow.
But apparently this happens a lot. Similar thing. People pick her up.
It happens a lot. It's common, isn't it?
It's common. Yeah, it is common. I think the best one of that is the one there's a program called The Ghost of the Tsunami.
Yes.
And you can get it on Netflix.
Yes.
And that's fascinating. And that was the same thing. They were talking about, they were interviewing a monk, and he's saying after the tsunami there was a massive spike in paranormal activity, and people were coming to him saying all these really interesting stories.
Wow.
And one of them was the taxi drivers. Now the taxi drivers get paid once they've dropped off their fare.
Yes.
So it will come through on their computer.
Yes.
And they'll say you're picking up so and so.
Yeah.
And you're taking them there.
Yeah.
So these taxi drivers were picking up individuals who were getting into their taxi.
Yeah.
They were driving them
Yes.
to the property, but the name and the address was on their computer, so they didn't even speak to the people in the back.
Yeah.
Even though they are in the back, they just picked them up. They get to the house, and they go, right, that'll be so much, and there's nobody in the car.
Wow.
And they can't get out because it's locked.
Oh.
And they said, well, what did you do? And the interesting thing about all these taxi drivers all said the same.
Yeah.
They said, we all paid for the fare because we're taking them home. So all the taxi drivers had to pay, because if you don't, it's logged that you get paid when they get dropped off.
Right, yes.
But there's no one to drop off.
Oh, my
So someone has to pay for that fare.
So the taxi drivers have
Taxi
to pick
drivers
it
paid
up.
for it, and they didn't mind. They said, yeah.
Wow. Because were they used to it?
Yeah,
Getting
exactly.
used to this.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a story, Alex, about an Uber driver.
Yeah.
It was a story from a very dear friend of his in Nottingham, based in Nottingham. Very similar, very weird. And he actually had a fare to pick up at the train station at Nottingham, and this strange woman got into his cab in the back and gave him an address in Cotgrave.
Yeah.
So he drove to Cotgrave, but the first thing he noticed was that she had no reflection in the mirror.
Yeah.
He could not see her in the mirror at all, which freaked him out.
Yeah.
And he took her to this, what looked like an abandoned house, in Cotgrave, and dropped her off. She'd already prepaid, and he watched her walk away to this derelict house. But something was strange, her feet were the wrong way round as she walked to this house. It freaked him out, and a number of days later he was in the same village, Cotgrave, and he asked one of the neighbours that was washing his car, excuse me mate, who lives in that house there? And he says, nobody. It's been derelict for 30 years. Well, that's an amazing roadside ghost story, and thanks for yours, Alex. It's been fantastic to meet you.
Thank you.
And we're going to do another one very, very shortly.
Definitely. Yeah.
And great luck with with your new group that you're forming based in Stamford.
Thank you.
Cheers, Alex.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. I'm going to meet up with Alex very, very soon. And do you know what? I think I'm going to join the British Paranormal Society. You should as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.